Hey guys, so today is day 12 of Road to Grandmaster. This is the end game of the day. Alright, today the topic is basically like how to defend in a worse end game, alright, or in the end game. Maybe it's not worse, right? Just like how to defend. And today's games, I think I find it very useful, right, and helpful for like to improve your intuition based on evaluation or understanding instead of like a long or like a far and a deep calculation. So it's really nice. All right, so let's see. So this is the gameplay by Anderson and Duretsky. So in this position is black to play. Right, black played bishop d7. Alright, and okay, so white played h4. He's trying, it's an isolated pawn. He's trying to break through and trying to create a weakness for black pieces. Either you take, create an isolated pawn, or he takes again, create an isolated pawn. Alright, so in this position, this is a position which black has a choice between exchanging on h4 or keep the pawn on g5. Right, so if you want to exchange the pawn, like you just take the pawn. If you want to keep the pawn on g5, okay, maybe you move the king somewhere. So this position is actually a little bit unclear. So black pieces decided to adjourn, right? Adjourn in this position. So let's see what is their analysis. All right. So the first question, right, of this game is, without going into analysis deeply, right? Try to decide which possibility you prefer. Right, so g takes h4 or move your king. So exchange on h4 or keep the pawn on the g5. Right, that's the question. Alright, so let's see their analysis. So in the game, he's thinking about king f7 or king e7. Right, there's two moves actually similar. So king f7. So yeah, since in this case black pieces could see no way for white to break through. Meanwhile, after gh4, king h4, king f7, king h5, and seems like black lose the pawn, right? Seems like black lose the pawn, right? Because you can't defend because of knight b5 strong move. Attack your weak d6 pawn. You can't take. That just create a passer and white win the game. Right. So this is like just like a short calculation. So let's see how they calculate it deeply, right? Or calculate it far. So yeah, after this short analysis, black decided to to adjourn the game. So let's see. Alright, so after king f7, so that's this king f7. Right, white would takes. Alright, so in this position, right, let's talk about this position a bit. So what is white plan? Right, white has an extremely dangerous plan. Right, so what is the plan? The plan is simply move your king to the b3 square. Right, so king go to the b3 square. So trying to use your visualization a bit. So the king go to b3, and after the king go to b3, your knight go to b5, and then you block this diagonal, and then you go king a4, and then you take the a4 pawn. That's the whole idea. And okay, some of you might ask like, well, it's like a very long plan. Is it gonna work? Like, is it gonna work? Like, does it make sense to have such a long plan? It's unclear, right? Black, there's many possibility for black. So, right, I'll talk about this. I'll like tell some my knowledge about this later. Right? So That's the idea. And the black king, so let's see like how can black deal with this. So let's say the black, alright, first of all, the black king cannot counterattack the king side pawn because of knight b5 attack the pawn. Right, so that's forced the king to stay at the f file. Why? Because like after knight b5, then you can take, pawn takes, and then your king defend the pass pawn in time. Right, this is the first one. The second one is like after you don't have to take, you can simply play king e7 to defend the pawn. Right, so your king can't move. Right, your king have to defend the d pawn. Right, I think taking on b5 is definitely not a good move because you just create a passer, a protected passer. Sorry, for white, it's definitely not a good pieces, and you create a like a path for white king. Right, from c4 to d5, it's definitely not good, and your g pawn is weak. So I think the whole idea is just to mid knight b5 with king e7, and then just like everything is holding, everything is fine. You know, the king is cut off. There's no like entry square for white pieces. So that's the whole idea, right? So your king can't move, right? So again, so the only entry square for white pieces is trying to attack the a5 pawn by playing king to b3, knight b5, and king a4, something like this. Alright, let's see. So if black stops white king getting to b3, so let's say the king was on c2, right? So trying to use your visualization. So let's say the king on c2, and black trying to prevent it by playing a4. Right, trying to play a4 to stop king to b3, and seems like, oh, then okay, white cannot break through. There's no like entry square for white pieces. Okay, then it's a draw. But after you play a4, white king will back to g3, right after you play a4, and then the king will go back to b3, so sorry, to g3, so and then he'll transferring the knight to b6. So how? Well, I guess knight d5, knight b6, yeah, and then black is going to lose a pawn either on a4 or d6, right? Because we attack the bishop and the pawn at the same time. And look at this bishop. You have to defend your pawn, and you have to defend this diagonal to prevent king g4. Alright, let's say you allow king g4. Right, let's say you play bishop c6 to prevent knight d5. Then we play king g4, king g6. Alright, so for example, after knight here, right, you go bishop c6. Right, remember the pawn is on a4, so you go bishop c6. Okay, we go king g4, you go king g6, and now, well, alright, I think, alright, sorry. So after knight b6, bishop c6. Okay, the move here is I think knight c8. Yes, yeah, I think it's knight c8 is the move to attack this. Yeah, and if king e6, then we go king g4. Then we win the pawn. Yeah, so that's the idea. So again, sorry, it's a bit like confused. So if the king, after the king go to c2, if black play a4 in this position, then we will go back to g3. So I'm telling you the plan of white pieces currently. And then after king go back, the idea for white is simple: play knight here, knight d5, and knight b6, attacking this bishop, attacking this pawn. If the bishop moves, then knight c8, attack this pawn. If the bishop moves, like didn't control this diagonal, king g4 is also a possibility to win a pawn. So it's like too many weaknesses for black pieces, right? Like a4, d6, and g5. So they can't defend all of them. So that's one possibility. So let's see. So the king can't attack our king side pawn. The black pieces can't play a4 to stop king b3. So let's see what else that black can does. So let's say black king goes to the queen side, right, to try to defend, and then the g pawn becomes vulnerable. Alright, so again, use your visualization. So let's say the king, or let's say go to b6 or c7, doesn't matter. So what is white plan here? His plan, right, is to force the g pawn move like this. So how? Alright, so the move here is, sorry, so let's say the king is on here or here, doesn't really matter. So whites want to play knight d5, knight f6, knight h7, and attacking this pawn. So remember, this king is on the queen side, doesn't matter where it is, b7, c7, doesn't matter. Then you want to go knight d5, knight f6, knight h7, and take the g pawn. So you force then move the g pawn with g4, and then you transfer, right? Sorry, not transfer. You returns your knight to e3 or c3. So from h7 you force g4. Okay, then the job is done. Okay, you go back to e3 or c3, right? And then put your king on g3, and then you lose this pawn. Black will lose this pawn on g4. So I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. So if the king goes to the queen side, you want to go knight here, knight d5, knight f6, knight h7 to force this g pawn move, because the king can't defend. The king's on the queen side, and then g pawn move. Now there's only bishop can defend it. So you go back maybe here, f6, d5 to e3, and then the king on g3, and you take the g4 pawn. Then you up a pawn. Okay, white's clearly better. Alright, that's the idea. So that's the whole idea for white pieces, and like kind of like white's refutation of black's defense. So that's mean the fortress, right? The fortress of black pieces is actually insecure, right? So right, it remains to try some attempts to hold a position by tactical, right? By tactical means. So let's say we assume that when white play king to b3, so again use your visualization. So after king on b3, so the king on b3. So I'll use blue color. Alright, so let's imagine the king on b3, white king's on b3. Or knight b5, then king e7. Right, then black trying to play bishop h3 to start. Let me try to use another color. Right, that's it. Okay, he played bishop h3. Black wanted to play bishop h3 to try to start a counter attack straight away. So alright, let's imagine this. So the king is on b3, the knight on b5, the black king to e7 defends the d6 pawn, and black try bishop h3 to try and make some counter play. Okay, so king a4. Let's say king f4. Alright, and black's play bishop f1. Bishop f1. And king takes a5. Bishop takes d3. And now white has this good move, knight c3, right, to defend his pawn on e4. And after bishop takes c4, so after bishop takes c4, and then white will simply play king b6. Yeah, and then we just have a pass pawn on a file. Right, black even has an extra pawn actually, because he take 2 pawns. We only take the a5 pawn. But it is not clear how black's going to like defend the advance of the past a pawn of white pieces. Right, so if the board is a bit like messy right now, I'm sorry. Alright, I'm not Hikaru, I'm sorry. So I'll say that again. So imagine the king on b3. Imagine king on b3, now on b5. Black king goes to e7, right? And then Black play bishop h3, king a5, bishop f1, king takes, bishop takes, knight c3, defend the e pawn, bishop takes, and king b6, and we push our a pawn. So it's like the counterplay also like kind of like doesn't work because we can simply push our a pawn. So it seems like this position is lost for black, right? Seems like you lost. It's lost. You simply lost the game. How you stop this long plan of white pieces? Right. So it seems like black is really facing some serious difficulties. So for quite a long time, black pieces look at variation after variation as he's trying to find and defend until black pieces finally decided to pay attention to the advice of the magician from Riga, the magician from Riga, Mikhail Tal, right, who was taking part in the analysis. Right, so what is the advice of Mikhail Tal? Mikhail Tal advised to play g takes h4. Right, so of course Mikhail Tal is very well known and famous for his attacking play, attacking skill, or attacking games, like crazy attacking games, and also famous for his calculation, right? Mikhail Tal calculation. So actually Mikhail Tal endgame is also quite good because he can even calculate accurately, like deeply, and calculate so far in an endgame. Right, so what did Mikhail Tal ideas here? So let's see. So first of all, without calculate something, let me try to like evaluate this position, like trying to understand this position. So why g takes h4? It seems like you just create a weakness, right? Right. Actually, if your opponent is on g5, it's also weakness actually. So what is the idea? So let's say. So okay, let's see. Although black pass pawn seems to be weak, right? Black pass pawn seems to be weak, but it brings some sharpness into the position. Right. So with the pawn on g5, there's no passer. With the pawn on h6, there is a passer. So at some point, he stopped this plan, right? So he brings some sharpness into the game, and this is what we have to do when we have a bishop against knight. So we have a bishop against knight. We want to create some sharpness. All right. On the other hand, the side with the knight is usually favored by a static situation, right? I repeat, a static situation. Right, so for bishop, you want to create some sharpness, some dynamic situation. For knight, you want to create some static situation. In a chess language, we say static. So you can also say it's stable situation. Yeah. So with the bishop, we want to like So wait, with we have the bishop. We want sharpness. Or dynamic or changing, right? The position is very changeable, right? With the knight, we want static or stable, whatever. So, right, this is like a knowledge or a theory. So, when you have a static position, static situation is like you can have a long plan because you have a static. Let's say you have a static advantage. It's like you win many moves ahead, like you after 100 moves, you win in that position, so you can play very slow, and that's what occur in this position after king f7 takes 6. That's what occur in this position. So it's like hundreds moves later, white win, right? Because white simply have some static situation, right, or statics advantage. All right. So, right, it's very instructive, right? So, yeah. So let's see. So, Let's see some calculation. So after g takes h4, right? Indeed, the choice between king f7 and g takes h4, right? It's one of the possible types of exercise for developing your intuition. Right? It's quite difficult to work the variations out exactly here, but yeah. So we have to try to guess the answers to the problem using a small amount of calculation and some general consideration. Right, then we should check the course of our thoughts against the answers and pick up those approximate consideration that prove to be the most useful in the given case and can help us arrive at the correct conclusion. Right, so to learn to divine things, we have to make guesses continually and then evaluate the quality of our guesses. So let's see what's actually happened on resumption. So after h4, g takes h4 is a very nice move, a very strong move, right? This shows a very nice understanding of black pieces. So g takes h4 shows a very nice understanding of black pieces, right? So after king takes h4, king f7, right? f3 was played in the game, right? So yeah, king h5 did play in layers, right? Play layers. So let's see. In the game f3 was played, we have king f6, knight d5 check. So after a long thought, white pieces decided not go in for the sharp main variation after king h5. Right, they will have follow bishop h3, good move. So like I said, you want to create some sharpness, some dynamics play. So knight e2. Right, let's say you play knight d5 here. King g7, defend the pawn. Knight e3, prevent bishop f1. Bishop d7. Knight g4. Takes, a4. And then, okay, this is simply a draw with king f7. Although white's got the opposition, but he cannot going round. Okay, he cannot going round. So this is a technique we learned yesterday. Yes, yesterday. So when you get opposition, what you're trying to do is you're trying to going round. So like he go here, then you go here. If he go here, okay, then you go here. Right, you just go another side. So in this situations, you cannot do that. Right. So right, king, because if you go king h6, again, black's got the opposition. Right, this is horizontal opposition. So we have like diagonal opposition, horizontal opposition, or vertical opposition. So there's three types of opposition. So in this case, it's simply a draw. After king f5, let's say king e7. Right, you can't get the opposition anymore. Go king g5. Okay, we repeat. So let's say king g6. Okay, now black's got the opposition, horizontal opposition. So that means there's simply no entry points for white pieces. So it's simply a draw. Right, just simply a draw. So it's good to know this in game. So let's see. After bishop h3, let's say you play knight e2 with the idea of bishop f1, knight c1, king g7, king h4, king f6, king g3, h5, king f2, bishop h3, knight b3, a4, knight c1, h4, knight e2, king g5, knight c3, bishop d7, knight b5, king f4, knight d6, h3, knight b7, h2, king g2, h1 queen. Right, king e7, king e3 also deserve attention. So h1 queen, and after takes, knight c5, bishop e8. Yes, black's down 2 pawn, but the activity of the black kings probably compensates for the 2 pawn, right? And in this position, it is certainly impossible to break down black's defense by simple methods and avoiding complication. So yeah, 95 was playing the game. So 95 was playing the game instead of the sharp king h5 line. So okay, 95 is just like king g7. Now it's okay. Now it's probably easy to draw. So with king g3, king f7, knight e3, right? F4 also gives nothing. So king f7, knight e3, king f6. With king h4, king g6, knight d1, bishop a4, knight e3. Okay, if knight c3, they will follow bishop c2. Knight b5 takes, king f6 to draw. So knight e3. And after bishop d7, okay, we just keep waiting there and then make sure there's like the knight can't do anything. In fact, the knight simply can't do anything. Alright, after knight d5, king g7, we just keep waiting. King g3, king f7, knight c3. Alright, and then the game draw. Yeah, and then it's draw. Yeah, probably they agree to a draw or something. Yeah, so the game ended in a draw. So this is actually very, very instructive in game, right? So it's very useful and very helpful for you to like kind of develop your intuition based on evaluation or understanding instead of calculation. So after h4, so I'll repeat again what we learned today. So after h4, so we have bishop against knight. So what bishop want is you want sharpness. Alright, so what knight want? You want a static position. So with king f7, this is favorable for white because it's simply a static position. White have a very long plan which hard to be defended by black pieces. And okay, maybe white just win like many move ahead, maybe 1,000 move ahead, like maybe 1,000 move, white win in that position. So we cannot just wait and die. So we want to create some sharpness. So we take. So at some point we create some sharpness by creating this passer, right? And that's what a bishop wants, some sharpness or like a dynamic. All right, so yeah, I think that is basically what we learned today. So on to improve your decision making, also improve your intuition. I think mostly it improve your intuition, right? And I think of course this theory or this knowledge also very instructive lah. Okay, very instructive, right? Good to learn that. So yeah, I think that's all for today. Alright, so hope you guys learned something and hope you guys enjoyed the videos. So yeah, that's all for today. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next day. So see you soon. Bye. Thanks.